Welcome to the Somerset PE and School Sport Conference 2014, organised by SASP, looking to educate and develop PE specialists and head teachers around the use of the sport premium funding. Over 80 schools are attending the day, looking at the development of professionals to enhance the impact and inspire young people within sport.
I'm here at Millfields today to lead on a national curriculum workshop because teachers are having a new national curriculum in September. It's very different, it's very bespoke, and it's very minimal of which teachers will build their own curriculum model. So I hope they've come here today to be inspired on what they can actually put in that curriculum. It is the first time in a long time we'll have a curriculum that will fit the child rather than the child having to fit the curriculum, which is really good news. I had about 60 people over the two workshops and they were so positive, and it is so nice to see teachers enthused and inspired, because that's what will make a difference to the young people today. And everybody I've been talking to here is really looking forward to all the new funding that will make a difference and the impact it's going to have on young people.
The idea of coming here today was to just feel like I'm not working by myself and that I'm getting the national message, and what I'm doing with the premium funding from the government is on the right lines.
The new level or no net levels within the school system curriculum across the board is going to be a real challenge, but I think in PE it'll probably be a little easier to tackle.
I've just done a workshop on the new primary PE curriculum, of which I'm not too au fait, so it was very helpful to have a quick blast through it to check that actually, again, what I'm thinking, the direction I'm thinking it's going in is I'm going in the right direction. Like the idea that we've got a lot more freedom to be able to teach the children rather than teach the sport.
And it will give the teachers a bit more freedom, so they're not doing prescriptive sports. They can perhaps do sports that other people won't necessarily do or experience. So yeah, it's going to be good, I think.
And I found it very helpful I will have a lot to go home and think about, but to have some information from the top people to tell me where to go, what to do, how to do it, and just reinforce that what I'm doing is right, is massively confidence boosting.
We're only a very small school, so the money that we've received as part of the government plan, we haven't got as much as the 9,000 that everybody was banding around. So we want to make sure that the money that we have got, we're going to be using in a good way, and we don't want to waste it, and so that it's good for the kids, you know, in a sustainable future, rather than just fritter away the money in a year and have nothing to show for it. So yeah, it's just trying to nail down what's the best solution to using the money, really.
What I want to do in the next 30 minutes is really get you to think. It's not just to lecture at you at all. It's to help you understand what the national vision for sport premium is. But I want to start by making a really important point to you. We've never had £150 million a year put into primary physical education and sport before in my lifetime. I am passionate about primary physical education and about sport because I believe it underpins not just the health of our children, but their prospects for life. That money is guaranteed throughout the term of this government, so you know you have it for at least the next 3 years. Should the Conservative government get in, they've guaranteed this money till 2020. Now that's not a reason to rush out and vote for any particular party. If the other party gets in, I am sure that 150 million will stay in place. There may be some changes, but for you, the important message is this is a long-term strategy. It's not a one-off quick fix. So it's an opportunity to raise the bar and to do things differently, not simply to do more of what we were doing. So what I want you to kind of travel with me on today is just to check in with yourself that you've asked yourself some really important questions about what you're doing and how you raise that bar. And as PE coordinators, you're going to lead that. And this is a real chance for you, not just in PE and sport, but in terms of your own professional development. So as I go through this, I'll ask some questions. Hopefully that might get you to think. And you might tick all those boxes and say, I'm doing all of that, that's terrific. Well, great, fabulous. But if I make you think again, don't just leave it here, take it with you and really ask yourself, what am I going to do differently over the next 3, 4, 5 years that's going to change everybody's perception in this school of the value of PE and sport. So that's where I'm coming from. Let me see if I can get the first slide. Is it that one? Right, great. First point I want to make to you is, you know about sport premium, it's about money. I want you to put that to one side just for a second. I want you to ask yourself a question as PE coordinator. How valuable does your head teacher believe PE and sport is? How dispensable is it when there's an exam to happen, or it's raining, or there's something else going on in school? Is it seen as a nice to do or a need to do? And one of the reasons I would ask you that is that largely when I've gone round, this is over my 60th conference with primary coordinators or head teachers, when I've asked rooms of head teachers about it, there is no question, they believe it's very much nice to do, not a need to do. Gives people a bit of fresh air, they run about a bit, helps with a bit of kind of behaviour control, but is it really making a big difference to school, and is it something, is it as important as literacy and numeracy? Oh gosh, no. Well, we've got some time to help people perhaps rethink that. And what I would argue is this. You came into teaching because you believed in giving every young person that passes through your hands better life chance. I would argue that that life chance is enhanced enormously, and academic achievement enhanced enormously, if those children are healthy and are getting good physical education and additional sporting opportunities. So those things on the board are not something I've made up. You know, the fact that PE and sport improves behaviour, we have evidence it changes attendance. We know it can really improve parental engagement if you're in a school where parents perhaps are least supportive of your educational process. We know it can underpin better SATs results. So one of your jobs today when you go back to school is to make sure you really understand what your head teacher's big whole school issue is. What is it that worries them? Is it SATs results? Is it attendance? Is it behaviour? Is it staff disengagement from activities beyond just teaching the day-to-day curriculum, which is tough enough job? What is it that worries them? And as you begin to think about how you and they, the head teacher, together manage what you do with this money, try and make sure this money really gives value back to your head teacher. Because the reality is, should this money ever stop at any stage in the future, the real test of whether this has been worth doing is not just that we've done a better job, more PE, more sport, better sport for the kids in the school now, but that we've embedded it in school life forever. And that is really a big challenge. It is a big challenge. It's a lifetime challenge that I've failed. This is our chance to do it. I can't do it. Perhaps you can. So that's the biggest challenge of all for you as you leave today. Can you really make sure your head teacher understands what this whole potential initiative can do for the whole school, not just for the subject? Oh God, I'm hopeless with these things. Can somebody click them for me? Oh, thank you. What is the vision for Sport Premium? Well, if you listen to the original statement when the 150 million was announced, you heard words like competitive sport, more team games. The vision has moved, and it's moved as all of us have worked together, Department for Education, Department of Health, Department of Culture, Media and Sport, the Prime Minister's Office, the Cabinet Office, Ofsted, Association for Physical Education, the County Sports Partnership Network, Youth Sport Trust. Believe it or not, we meet once a month. And we are working together to say, what is the vision for this? And we've begun to really ask our question, not what can you do by just chucking money at something, because everybody can make things happen with money. But what change are we really looking for? What's our vision here? What's sustainable here? And the bottom line is, we want most of this money to be spent on improving the teaching of physical education. And that is the bedrock on which you build. The teaching of physical education, not the coaching in physical education, the teaching of physical education. And then complementing that with additional sporting opportunities, bringing in coaches, helping you build extracurricular activity, and of course, really tackling, with those kids that are least active, some of the big health issues. So the vision now is very clear. And when Ofsted come, the questions they may have asked will have changed slightly for those who've not been Ofsteded yet by them, and they will be asking your head teacher, not you. That's why he or she really needs to understand this agenda. They will be asking about impact, and they'll be asking about impact in two areas: education impact, health impact. So what are you doing with this money which is improving the attainment of young people in education? What are you doing with this money which is improving young people's participation in sport or healthy activity that is really helping drive the health agenda? Those are the two big questions your head teacher needs to be able to answer when Ofsted come. Every Ofsted inspector has now been trained in this subject, first time ever. At Ofsted have done dedicated training on physical education, and I think it's really important that this wider vision for what this can achieve is now embedded in everybody's thinking, because it gives us a chance for it to be sustainable. And it's very much part, in the Prime Minister's mind, in the Cabinet Officer's mind, it's very much part of a long-term legacy from London 2012. People often talk about legacy. People throw lots of money at things called legacy, but real legacy is long-term transformational change. And that's what this is capable of being. So if you didn't feel like a soldier at the front of the army before you came in, I hope you're beginning to get the idea now that you're out there in this vanguard movement with a chance to change not just physical education, but education for the future generations of kids. Massive responsibility, should feel very terrifying and equally extremely exciting. So let's get on with the 9,000 and what you want to do with it. Now I've put in the box there 3 things inside the red box. Next big question for you to ask yourself: do they look different in your school? Does physical education look different from sport, or is it actually the same thing? Are sport and physical education the same thing as interventions around health? Does it all look the same thing? Or are you really clear in your own mind about that distinctiveness? Physical education, a curriculum subject. Why is it in the curriculum? It's in the curriculum because if we'd reversed the title and called it Education Through the Physical, people maybe have got it a bit clearer. It isn't just about the activity. It's about what we're learning through the activity, just as literacy is not just about letters. It's about developing an appreciation of words and sentences and paragraphs and stories and meaning and being able to articulate yourself. So physical education is the very meaning that we want to get out of it, is what makes it distinctly different. So as educators, you will know what you're trying to do in literacy and numeracy. Are you achieving the same kind of level of educational outcome in PE? In terms of sport, everybody knows what that is because you watch it on the telly all the time. So everybody can define that. It's sort of very clearly a regulated activity. It has rules, usually has some kind of competition in it. Usually quite complex. Usually the biggest thing that puts off primary teachers because it looks very complicated. And it's about how we bring that down and simplify it, not for us as teachers, of course, but for young people. And all that, you know, do you remember that psychology you did when you were training as a primary teacher? Told you about kids' different stages of learning. How well do you apply that to what they do in sport? Remember, they only do concrete thinking to a certain age. So you know the outcome of that, don't you? You know, you give them a football. If they're too young, drop the football down, and it goes, whew. You've told them all to play this position, that position, doesn't mean a thing. Whew. There's the ball, here am I. Okay, so we know some of those things just because of experience. So how well are we structuring what we're doing? And for those kids who perhaps are not engaged in activity, maybe you have some very severe challenges in terms of young people with severe special needs, very difficult to integrate, although you should be trying to, but maybe need some dedicated support. Those kids who perhaps have Body weight issues, who really struggle. The last kid to get picked, you know those stories. What are you doing to engage them? Have you a different strategy for them, or do you just hope it'll all work out? So do you have a kind of health intervention strategy? Are you clear what you're trying to do for the ones who are least active? And I would argue those 3 blocks are different. I'm just going to say a little more about each of those, just to get you to think. You may actually be ticking all of these and saying, I know all that. If you do, fantastic. My job's to try to create a national picture that we're all working together towards. So, what do we mean by physical education? Okay, for those who, if anybody in here is a PE specialist, they'd look at that and they'd have a nervous breakdown and say it's too simple. But it isn't. It actually sums up for me what makes physical education, not sport. So, let me give you an example. If you were teaching a youngster to read in literacy, you would probably teach them letter recognition, you might be doing phonics, you'd be putting letters together into words, put words into sentences. It's a form of, it's literacy. Well, at Key Stage 1, that's exactly what you should be doing with physical literacy. And I'm going to let a little girl explain what we mean by physical literacy in a minute, because she does it far better than me. So are you really creating literate children? And when they come in, you test them, wouldn't you, where they are in their reading skills. It'll vary enormously depending on what mum and dad have or haven't done with them or their carers. Same with physical literacy. Where are they? And what special interventions do you need to do at Key Stage 1 to help those who are really quite clumsy, who haven't had the chance to run freely, never caught a ball in their lives? How do you help them catch up? What would you do in literacy numeracy? You might use a teaching assistant, mightn't you? Is that good use of your £9,000? I'd say it is. Bring in someone who can work with those who've got basic challenges to help them fast track a little bit. Is that a good use of some money? Yes. I'm not talking about a sports coach, I'm talking about someone who really understands literacy, physical movement. Okay? Learning. What are they learning as they're doing physical education? What is it they're learning beyond being physical? I think young people today are wired differently. They spend their entire life, even before they get to you, on blinking iPads and looking down at something in their hand. They're wired differently. Where do we get a chance to kind of rewire them a bit more into the world of society and humanity? I think PE is massive. They have to communicate. Very early on, you can help them lead. You know, they can begin to organise. You know how you do that. You create monitors in schools, playground monitors, playground leaders, young people who can make things happen. What are they learning there? They're not just learning about activity, they're learning some wonderful life skills. So what learning is going on, and how are you drawing that out in PE and helping other people, other teachers, the head teacher, the children themselves understand what it is they're learning, not just making it happen. And God forbid any of you are doing 20-a-side rounders. Okay? I know that some of your colleagues, when asked to do PE, do 15-a-side rounders. You don't need to nod like that at me, it's true. And why do they do it? Because it's not complicated. There's one bat, nobody's ever going to hit a ball with, by the way. It's a little thin thing. Whoever invented this game didn't understand children, but anyway, little thin thing, little hard ball that hurts like the bejeebers when it hits you, and a kid in backstop who's going to go in with one tooth missing. Okay? Everybody else is sitting in the outfield, ball's never going to go out there, and they're doing daisy chains. What is physical about it? What is educational about it? What learning is happening? Zip, zip, zip. Why would a head teacher think that was good? Because they don't think they have the skill to assess it. But of course they do. Because what does good teaching look like? What does it look like? You know. It has pace, it's differentiated, everybody's engaged, it's inclusive. Is that what your PE looks like? Is that what your colleagues' PE looks like? And if it isn't, there's a lot of support out there to help you. We, Youth Sport Trust, have got free programmes for Key Stage 1 and Key Stage 2 professional development. Association of Physical Education's got support. You've got local support. You haven't got to do this alone. But don't confuse it with sport. It's physical literacy. It's every child's right, just as it is to be literate and numerate, to be physically literate. Let's listen to somebody who explains it better than me.
Okay, the clock's ticking. You have until I'm 7 years old to make sure I can do this, and this. Obviously, I can already do this stuff, because I get lots of help. But loads of kids don't, and are really missing out. It's called physical literacy. And we need you to help us as early as possible. So we can do all kinds of things when we're older. We'll try anything at this age. So now's the time to help us, before it's too late. Because if we don't learn these basic skills now, we might just give up. We might never discover what we could have been good at, and we might turn into couch potatoes. So fire us up, inspire us. If you don't, you're asking us to settle for a life that's shorter and less healthy. And we don't want that, do we?
That's on YouTube if you want to show it colleagues, because I think it's lovely. And for Key Stage 1, that just captures beautifully what we should be doing. Okay, it's the letters of the alphabet. Linking them, you know, it's separate individual movements, then linking them together to make words, movement joined together. You call that gym or dance if you want to, but that's what it is. It's connecting individual movements into little sequences, sentences, paragraphs beginning to tell a story. By the time we get to Key Stage 2, I'm quite interested now in the story. I want to kind of express these skills inside a context. And that's where you start to teach mini sports, provide little mini dance festivals, mini gymnastics as you move on. But don't confuse Key Stage 1 and Key Stage 2. Make sure that at Key Stage 1 we've really got these wonderfully physically literate, confident, happy kids. And I can guarantee you that if you've got that, academic standards will improve in your school, and so will behaviour. Okay, secondly, let's talk about, these are the things you could spend some of your money on. And if I was giving you guidance nationally, I would say, unless you have this absolutely right, by the way, the third one, I'm expecting a tip on the way out. It says enhanced payments for PE coordinators. I'm expecting a £5 from each of you as you leave the room. But coming along with enhanced payment for you comes enhanced responsibility for you. So some of that £9,000 needs to be spent on your professional development. Don't be shy about asking for that with your head teacher. Secondly, making sure your staff, your colleagues, are supported with professional development. And, you know, they might say, well, I don't like PE. Well, too bad. It's actually part of the job description. And you darn well need to get out there and do it. Sorry, we can't say I don't like English. We have to, if we teach in primary school, PE is part of the curriculum. Now, it might be that they're nervous of PE. They didn't have a great experience themselves. They're very anxious about it. We've got to do some good, subtle thinking here about how we make this attractive and meaningful. But I have never seen a primary teacher, however begrudgingly they've shown up at a course, not leave inspired and excited about what they can do. So really encourage your colleagues to get involved in this. And it's not just the children who will benefit from that. Their relationship with the children will be different in that context. Kids they're struggling to manage in the classroom, they'll suddenly find they have a strategy to deal with them. Young people that are not communicating with them, they'll find another way of talking to them. You know yourselves, when you work with children in a physical environment, the relationship and the challenges change. Really, really important for your colleagues to understand this is an opportunity for them to grow as teachers, not just to help children do things better. But there you go, that's the kind of things that we would hope you would spend the majority of your money on, unless you're telling me that PE in your school is A+, then you can begin to think about where you spend the rest of the money. You know about this, so I'm not going to linger long on it. You've got school games banners everywhere. You've got an amazing tool to use here called the School Games to help with competition. You've got a county sport partnership here who's you know, supporting that, and we're supporting that at every level, level 1, 2, 3. So you've got a ready-made vehicle to do intra-sport, intra-competitive sport, inter-county level, and of course there is a national final for older youngsters. So for me, sport is about competition, it's about coaching. Big question, are the coaches coming in to complement what you're doing in physical education, not substitute for what you're doing in physical education, to complement it with sporting opportunities? Are they the right people? And I see in your pack that the partnership here has developed a quality mark. That's really important, because although a coach may have the right governing body qualification, are they equipped to work with primary age youngsters? I've seen very, very good coaches appallingly teaching primary age children, and I'd put myself in that list. Okay, it is what you do day in and day out is immensely important job. It is probably one of the most important jobs in this country. And whilst everybody may look over your shoulder and think they could do it, I can tell you they can't. It's a very skilled occupation that you have. And anybody who puts on and says, oh yeah, I come in and help, I can help, make sure you vet them. Make sure they know your children and your rules and your school, so that they really add value. Simple thing, discipline. You know, you may have a real clear vision in your school about how you discipline youngsters. What happens if the sport coach comes in, somebody doesn't do something, he says 5 press-ups, run around the playing field? I am trying to get kids healthy. I want kids to think of activity as something that is fun to do, not a blooming punishment. So be really clear with the people who come in that they're following your rules, they're your children, it's their lives that this is affecting. So how could you spend your money when you've audited what you've got, what you've not got? Can you establish a house system? Can you bring in quality assured coaches? Can you provide training for volunteers? Can you create links with clubs which are sustainable and long term, not short fix? And you can pay for transport of your out of your 9,000 for competition and swimming. May I just mention swimming? It is in there, it is important. I will just give you one piece of guidance. And the guidance is that all the research shows that you can teach swimming much more effectively in a short block of time, not once a week, week after week after week. By the time they go back to week 2, they've only remembered how to drown. Okay, so if you do it in a short block, maybe after SATs, it'll be more cost effective. You can probably bring in a really good teacher of swimming, and you can get all your youngsters through a teaching course. Great way to use some of your money, if you want to use some of your money for that. Okay. And finally, because I'm conscious of time, the third bit. I talked about this a bit earlier. This is those youngsters that we're all struggling with. I don't need to quote obesity figures at you because you read them in the paper all the time. But do you know what's equally worrying? It's not the physical health and well-being of our children, it's their emotional well-being. And we're seeing enormous changes in the number of youngsters suffering emotional traumas, fretting about body image. Don't know if you've seen some of the latest films where, you know, they're showing little girls with waists that are about like this. You know, what that does is it says to a little girl, I'm not a little girl. There are some huge issues going on here. They're bombarded by social media the whole time about what they should look like, what they should dress, what they should be. We have a subject in our hands that can say, do you know, you're okay. You're okay as you are. Look at our winning Olympic athletes in 2012. I didn't see too many of them that were size 0. They're healthy, strong, muscular, feminine, fabulous. And don't think these issues are only about girls. There are huge emotional issues now for boys. Similar kinds of issues. So when you're thinking about how do we use PE to make sure our children are not only healthy and well, but emotionally sound, it's really, really important. Healthy children are kids who learn better. They are kids who achieve more. So thinking about how you do interventions, so if you flip me on, would you? You know, what can you do? We can set up targeted programs for the least active. You could change your playground completely. Use some of your money to do that. Take your midday supervisor, if you still have a midday. Now everybody's got to do lunches. Is PE going to the wall, by the way, because everybody's doing lunches in the PE space? There's some real issues here for us. You know, on the one hand, there's this real emphasis on PE, but then there's other pressures that come into your head teacher. And you've got to be a great advocate for this subject. Nobody can do this from some government on high. You've got to do this. But lunchtime supervisors, fantastic resource used well, just to manage and organise playgrounds, young playground leaders, really dynamic way to make your playground vibrant, healthy and active. Use outdoor and adventurous activity. You live in a wonderful county. If you set up a local orienteering track, a trail with exciting and interesting things on it that kids can walk around at lunchtime, thinking about all of that. Again, good use of that 9,000. Okay, thanks. How do you do it? First and foremost, I presume you've all conducted an audit. You can use some of your 9,000 to get someone from outside to come and look for you. How good is my PE? Because you might think it's good, you might want to just double check that. Can use some of your money to do that. How good is my sport provision? And am I doing the right kind of things for the least healthy, the least active? If you want someone to come in and assess that for you, for a morning or a day, you can use your money to do that. Make sure that you, as PE coordinators, are valued in school. Get in there, talk to your head teacher, get your face on the billboard, get yourself some professional development, start to be aspirational leaders of our schools of the future. That's what I would love, that all of you, in 10 years' time, are head teachers and PEs right in your heart. And you know why you do it, you're passionate about it, and your school's going to be the best school ever in this subject, because you're going to be the most successful school as well. Okay, thanks. Chris is going to talk a bit later about how you use PE to drive whole school standards. And if you're really interested in that, I think there's some great stuff in there. And finally, I would argue that maybe one of the best ways to work is to work in families. I know school sport partnerships came, and I know they went. And some have survived, and God bless them, about 60% of them have survived across the country. But there is some real value in thinking about working as a family. Simple thing, could 4 of you, 5 of you get together and employ one full-time PE specialist, primary specialist, who helps with all the professional development, is always there, can drop in and out, and can be a real support to you. Just each put a bit of money in the pot, you'd have one. Try and think differently. Thanks. And finally, I'd just say, where I started, I don't think this is nice to do. I really do not think this is a nice to do. And whatever perceptions you have of what you're doing right now, and I'm sure some of you are doing a fabulous job, I want you to lift your sights and do an even better one. You know, when we were at UK Sport, we were 10th in the medal table for the Olympics. Was that good? Yeah, it was good. We've been 36th in Atlanta, so 10th was pretty good. But that wasn't good enough. And I want you to go away, however good you are, really fired up that in 5-6 years' time, your school is going to be a beacon of the very best physical education, school sport, healthy interventions, and in so doing, it's going to be one of the most successful schools in the country in terms of children's performance, children's life chances, and children's future. I believe every child has that right. Go away and set the world on fire, please. Thank you very much.